Hello, everyone. Welcome to Telling Tales. It's been a little while. We seem to have entered into another one of our periods where we desperately try to get back in the saddle with regular streaming, but life gets in the way. For any of you who haven't entered middle age yet, that's what that is. That's what you have to look forward to. So hopefully you do so. But fingers crossed that we will be back on with Symbaroum consistently. And that the next however long we'll see the reappearance of things like Yellow King and one shots and stuff like that. I believe Call of Cthulhu's looking to get back on the horse come next Monday as well. So we'll see how it lasts. But obviously, life is life. And that's that really. There's nothing any of us can do about that, no matter how hard we try. So there we go. But we're going to play some Symbaroum tonight, and we're going to have fun doing so. And speaking of fun, let's have the funnest guy I know up first on screen. It's Chris. There he is. Look at it. Look how fun the thing on his head is. It's so fun that someone once said they couldn't take the stream seriously because of it. So yeah.
Good job, Melody Chan.
Chris plays Theo, former infantryman and town guard turned sort of kind of sellsword with a conscience, I suppose. So yeah, that's a pretty good summary. Chris, how you doing? And what are you looking forward to getting back to after some inconsistency in the campaign?
I'm doing as well as can be expected given current events. I think that probably goes for Steo as well. It's very Steo wants to be far away from politics, and that's next to impossible when you're in the employ of 1.5 princesses and quite the cadre of noble houses and people whose names you recognize for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, that's about right. And we're definitely going to have a bit of a talk about some of that tonight because I feel like I feel like it was Stephen who brought it up. And you know what? Speaking of Stephen, let's bring Stephen on. Stephen plays Elindra, former Templar novice turned sellsword without a conscience. With a lessened conscience.
With a more flexible conscience.
A more flexible conscience. That's a good term for it. How are you, Stephen? And what are you looking forward to diving back into in the campaign?
The horrors persist, but so do I. I am looking forward to putting behind us for a little while some of the horrible, dangerous combat and getting into the real danger of politics. Which, after stealth, I think is the one thing that our party is really not built for.
Yeah, and whoever got hurt because of politics.
Sure, yeah. It's fine. It's just a big fun game.
Yeah. Let's move on.
That's all I got for you today. I'm sorry.
No, that's perfectly fair. Maybe John will have some more. John plays Arendar.
God save us.
Last remaining son of Housestar, duelist. Neil said raconteur. He's definitely not a raconteur. It just fits well after duelist, you know. But you're not a raconteur, anti-raconteur, and owner of a lovely cat. John, how are you? And what are you looking for from the campaign at the moment? I can't talk. That bodes well.
I am in a strange and unfamiliar place and slightly out of sorts. Unlike Arendar, who is in a very familiar place, as he spent most of his upbringing in Indros, and is also very uncomfortable and unsure of what's going on. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of conversations with some very important people and at least one of those slightly less important people is going to involve the conversation of, we think your husband may have committed a horrible atrocity, which is always an exciting conversation to have with someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much. Incidentally, John, being as you're in a different setup than usual, is your mic your headphones, or is your mic what your kind of a device you are talking into?
It is my headphones, because if I set it to my device, then the sound also comes through my device. It's, for some reason, it won't disconnect the audios.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. That's fine. Because I was just going to say, if it is your device, you don't need to lean into it too much because you're kind of booming. But maybe talk slightly quieter. I don't know.
I can do that.
That's so much better. That's instantly so much better.
We can do an Symbaroum ASMR live stream from Telling Tales Productions.
Yeah, I knew that would send Chris, and I'm glad that I was proved right. Let's bring on our final player for the night. It's Sam. Sam plays Ascarai, of course, Changeling, Archer, Scout, DPS machine. How are you, Sam? And what are you hoping for this session of Symbaroum?
I'm good. I'm looking forward to seeing if we get to do any spelunking, I guess, effectively. I feel like there's some secrets to be had, and that's sort of slightly where we've been led by this map, so could be good.
You are the heroes of the sinkhole.
It's what we do best.
It's what you do best. Cool. Okay. Well, let's see if that happens then. I'm going to give a bit of a recap. Let's see how I can do in trying to balance this between too much detail and not enough detail. So the group of you are in Indaros, slowly sniffing away on the trail of the long lost city of Symbaroum for various reasons, even amongst yourselves, let alone all the reasons other people in the world might be looking for Symbaroum, or Symbar, I should say, rather than Symbaroum. The capital city has recently been afflicted with the horrible results of a magical ceremony that sent huge kind of meteors or comets crashing into the Cathedral of Martyrs, killing lots of people and leaving a lot of destruction in its wake. You arrived on the scene and helped people out, specifically the Sun Duchess Esmeralda, and therefore have sort of been put on the case of finding out how this happened, why it happened, who is responsible, etc. You followed multiple threads since then, including finding out that a very interesting and unusual prisoner was being held beneath the Cathedral of Martyrs. He has since been recovered after being sprung, which may or may not have been the reason why the cathedral was picked, and he's been returned to the proper authorities. One plot thread that's sort of ongoing, however, is a couple of his captors you in turn captured, and you have to decide what to do with them yet if something hasn't already happened with them. You followed a little bit of a thread to a certain degree about a mysterious individual who was in the cathedral who probably shouldn't have been, and you didn't come to much conclusion other than he seemed to be someone with the hots for someone he referred to as his queen. You have investigated House Viara, who seemed linked to it in a number of ways, and as a result, you went off to the Viara estate, where you're just returning from, which you found to be a wasteland of corruption, due to the fact that it evidently seemed to be the place where the ceremony was carried out. You were hoping to find Count Viara, among other individuals, but he was just about the only person you didn't find there, along with Artel, a sort of not legendary, but a sort of like a figure from the past who lots of people thought was dead, who may or may not be responsible for the ceremony. Certainly, you found a lot of evidence pointing to the fact that they were, but I don't know if you want that to be a certainty until you've got your hands around his throat. I'm trying to think of anything else. There's lots of stuff happening in the city. I won't go into it in exhaustive detail. You're also waiting on an appointment with the old ceremony master of the Ordo Magica. That hasn't come through yet. God, I'm trying to think of other random things. We will mention you've just returned to the city, and one of the town criers you heard calling about how several mystics in Indaros had been killed by the giants that seem to have been released by the impact of the starfall on the cathedral. There's so much stuff. There's so much stuff in this story. But I wanted to kind of throw most of it on the table at a surface level there. There's so much more than that, though. Okay. Yes. So I think I said it was like maybe early afternoon by the time you returned. So you're now proceeding through the western part of the city. You have 2 sets of rooms. Some are at the tower where you first arrived at the city. And at the tower are Revelia and your 2 prisoners. And then there's Zoltar's Inn, which is slightly close to where you are now, which is much less official. And you suspect less people know about those rooms than the tower rooms. The agents of the Sun Duchess certainly know about the tower. So, yeah. I think we could probably do with you fine characters having a bit of a chat to determine where you go now, because maybe like I feel like there are still some threads dangling, but there's no immediately obvious next step for you just yet as you're proceeding towards your rooms. So I'm going to hand it over to you to do what you do.
Just one thing from last time. When we got to the gate, and there was like the extra guards. They told us who had sort of ordered more guards, or who had been put in charge of that sort of stuff, and I can't remember who it was.
Yes, that's absolutely fine. The individual who seems to have been put in charge of this kind of army reserve and the city watch in this crisis period is called Father Matteo Brigo. Okay. Did I have anyone? I don't think we talked about it at the time, but I don't see how Anton wouldn't know who he is. So Anton will confide. Is Anton with you? Is there any reason why he's not with you? I don't think so.
Anton is with us. I think he may have already said, is he the acting first father?
He's not the acting first father, because the first father is acting as a first father. He's the first part. He's generally seen as the first father's like second in command, deputy, close assistant, whatever you want.
So will we have a conversation as we are walking through the town? Because Steo's going to be like, I think the only reasonable first point of call is back to our patron for this particular mission.
We should hand the horses back.
We should hand the horses back. I want to get rid of this fancy sword. I don't like it.
Yes,
I also want to. No, you go
after you, Steve. I was going to say, I mean, we have stronger evidence of the identities of the people behind this attack, which we need to go tell people. But I can't see a reason not to drop by House Viara on the way to return the horses and report on the scene, and perhaps get paid.
We should be careful, because I mean, we have information that implicates House Viara in a way that might be the undoing of their entire household. So
you think they'll try to stop us from leaving that conversation?
I mean, I don't know, but I think it's a possibility. Just think we need to be aware.
I was going to suggest that we should report honestly and truthfully on everything that happened there, except for that little map. And we should also not make any connections to the events in Indaros.
We were not clear about why we volunteered for that. And I think we should remain unclear about why we volunteered.
And Tom kind of nods and says, we can describe the scene as we found it, but leave out certain elements. I see no particular reason to describe the site of the ceremony or our suspicions about Count Viara, Count Brigo, Artel.
Yeah,
Brigo.
that's a good idea.
Any relation to Father Matteo Brigo?
I mean, they're clearly the members of the same house.
Okay.
But houses can be, especially houses as big and important as Brigo, can be quite sprawling affairs. So you don't know offhand.
Yeah, I won't know. I don't know if anybody else in the party has any like better sense of how. Okay. It's just it's interesting that outside of Viara, there is one other house implicated. We have evidence that their count didn't make it, but Father Matteo is presumably another somewhat senior member of that house and is currently in control of this city. I hadn't made that connection before we'd arrived and had that conversation with the guard coming in.
It might be a little bit of a tenuous connection. And Anton, do you know anything about this father? Like, is he, as far as church affairs go, would you describe him as a conservative, or would you describe him as one who would maybe throw his lot in with the with this? What are they called? The hammers?
I don't know who you're describing. So
the fundamentalists who we had to battle at the whip of Frios.
The whip.
Anton shrugs and says he is just a big eyes second. He is a conservative.
So it might follow that it's more the whip than the house in this case.
Does Ambria have is sort of the same relationship between like noble houses in the church that real world history had, wherein if he's in the church, then he's probably a spare?
No, not where he's probably. Well, no, yeah, sure, yeah. Like it probably won't have the same sequential thing that happened at various times in medieval history, but he is unlikely. Yeah, he won't have been in line to inherit, probably, directly. So,
okay.
Yeah, just worth noting. I understand that it was the cathedral that got attacked, but I don't think it necessarily follows that in trying to manage any chaos in the city that would happen afterwards. It just seems odd to me that the Queen would so willingly cede control of the capital city to the church.
It does seem that there's at least a small chance that this is some big power play for the Brigos, and that these two family members are somehow I guess, in cahoots. But I mean, also possible that they're not, but he'll still not be happy that we're kind of disparaging his family name in this way. But maybe he's a very pious man and will be completely on our side and will denounce his family member.
I don't think we need to spread theories around, and I don't think there's anything that we can necessarily do about this, but it was just a thought. So that coincidences tend not to be.
So just on more practical terms, might we potentially... I'm tempted to ask to see if we can, if they have an apartment for us in this compound tonight, because then no party knows where we are for one night, and we could link up with Revelia again.
The Viara, you asking for a room in the Viara household?
I'm sure they have guest quarters or even a barracks.
They're still quite closely implicated with all of the events. I'm not sure having only House Viara know where we are is
this a
the
rare
safest thing.
occasion where everyone else in the party is slightly more paranoid than me? If so, I
Yeah.
applaud all of you. And
I'm
yes,
I'm
that's
not
fine.
sure that paranoia has anything to. I think paranoia is massively overstating it. You just found out that House VR is directly involved in this, and you want to sleep in their guest bedroom.
Best,
Favor.
they
They owe us
want
a ton of
to.
money.
At best, they want to overthrow the throne. At worst, they want to bring down the entirety of Ambria, and this party is the only group of people that fully understands their connection to it. It is not safe to rent an apartment from them tonight.
Okay. Well, then we go back to the tower and hope to hook up with the Sun Duchess.
There are plenty of other inns in the city if we wanted to find a third room to rent.
We're going to need to speak to Marlowe.
Yes, I was going to say it would be a good idea to check in with our handler at some stage.
I'm comfortable with
for
them
no other
finding us.
reason than the fact that they might have news for us.
So just to ask the question, where are we going right now? Are we going to hand in, as it were, with House Viara first?
I think so.
Seems
I would
quite
say yes.
sensible for whatever degree of that is happening.
Yeah. And then the consensus seems to be the tower after that, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Well, it does not take you long to reach the sort of gated community that it belongs to, the nobles of Indaros, and a short time after that, you were at the gates of the Viara estate. Let me just think about the relative times of this. Yeah, okay. As you approach the gates, several of the house guard step forward and seem kind of like grim but warm towards you. And Captain Haran strides out from the gates and says, "Well, by all accounts, a good job. A good job. Come on then, let's have those horses. I'll take you in to see the Countess."
Gladly dismount.
We had a bird not an hour ago from our outpost. They spoke very highly of you. So, well done. I'm glad to see the Countess's faith was well placed.
We did what we could.
And to understand, you did not locate the master of the house, though.
Regretfully.
That's correct.
Very well. The Countess is aware of this, so you do not need to break the news to her, but she would like to hear from you directly if that's agreeable.
Of course.
We are at our pleasure, of course.
He nods. The kind of stable hands take your horses away from you, pausing for you to obviously take all your gear off them. And you step through into the hallway of the Viara estate, probably trailing quite a bit of mud behind you, and ash, and shown through to the same kind of. I literally forgot the name for it the first time, and now I'm forgetting the name.
Drawing room, antechamber.
No, it won't be a drawing room.
Reception room.
Reception room. Yeah, that I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but that will do. Where the Countess is already waiting for you. She looks somewhat pale and drawn, more so than the last time you met, but does kind of like greet you all kind of warmly and effusively with many thanks. She says, I'm so grateful that you took this commission on, and even more grateful that you apparently liberated a number of our troops and the surviving servants from the estate. Truly wonderful work, and I will have it said around the city that you are individuals worthy of yes.
Thank you, my lady, and I do wish that we had better tidings to bring you.
Yes, I've had a fairly, what I believe to be a comprehensive report from Lieutenant Radask, but of course, I would like to hear it from yourselves as well. I just for the sake of, I will tell you in case you want to make sure it ties up. I don't think Radask knew really much about what you found at the estate, other than what the other survivors could tell him. He only got as far as the watchtower, and then in that last sortie towards the villa itself. So he won't know anything about the ceremony site, the cottage.
Tell.
Arta, anything really like that. So you should be fairly clear to not include things you don't want to include. But if anyone wants to be the mouthpiece and sort of relate things, then go ahead.
I think I'm fairly happy to relate things and miss out the things I think she doesn't need to know. She's concerned about her husband and her husband's well-being and her servants, and those are the parts that I will recount.
Yeah, absolutely. Does that include the fate of, I guess, the only named individual who you knew was there and you knew died because you found his body is Count Brigo, right? I don't think there's anyone else specific who you can relate.
Yeah.
No.
I think I'll talk to Count Brigo because I have his sword.
Mm.
So I will kind of unbuckle the sword and go, we did manage to identify Count Brigo by this, and I present it to you.
Oh, that is sad. I will have to send a runner to their estate and speak to them. But I thank you. She takes it and kind of gingerly places it on a table nearby. So I'm assuming you basically just described that there was corruption, that there were abominations, that almost basically everyone you saw who wasn't corrupted and you didn't rescue was dead. So
Yeah, I'm wondering whether I would mention that we found people with the tattoos on them.
it's up to you, but it certainly isn't something that Radask is aware of.
I think no. I think I'll leave that out. Because we think they could have been working with Artel. Was that the thing?
They certainly seem to have participated in the ceremony.
Yeah, I will leave that out then.
Very, very well. Well, I shall have to hope that somehow if you did not find his remains, that my husband escaped from this awful nightmare. Radask has told me that he has little clue as to how this even happened. Sirs, with all your experiences to the north, the things you've seen and the things you know, can you shed any light on this?
I think it might be a matter for the mages, Countess, but it's rare even in the forests that we'd come across a place so badly defiled. Whatever happened there was profane.
The only conclusion I can come to is that my husband had recently engaged some rather unusual business partners, perhaps. But I thank you for your advice, Sergeant Steele. I shall speak to the Order Magica as soon as I can. Obviously, things in the city are upside down at the moment, but thank you. And all that remains, obviously, is to speak of recompense. I suspect you will not. You have your own reputations, but first of all, I would like to say that should any of you wish a prestigious position in the Viara Guard, you only have to say so. A highly paid position could be found for any of you, but I understand that you are adventurers who wish your own way in the world, but that is available should you ever wish it.
That's very kind, thank you. Your troops are of some renown and carried themselves with great acuity yesterday.
If I
Thank you. Go on.
might say, Countess, on the subject, though, of positions among your guard, Radask may have mentioned some local youths assisted us in the final sortie. I would like to put in a word of recommendation for them.
No, yes. It has Radask did mention this, and I will relate your recommendation back to them, as I will relate your compliments to Radask and his troops.
Thank you.
Take some bravery to run towards something like that, let me tell you.
In that case, there is a certain standard of pay for unusual circumstances like this. That my husband may not approve of, as it's something that my father used to advise me rather than anyone in House Viara. But I have decided to pay you this plus some personal amount from my own pocket. And she gestures towards Captain Hadar, who kind of steps in front of each of you and hands you a writ of payment that you can basically cash in at any senior money lender, any kind of like bank in the city, and they will give it you in cash or in, effectively kind of bonds or however you like. And each of you have been granted 150 thaler.
This is very generous, my lady. Thank you.
My father told me that excellent service needs to be rewarded excellently. And I fervently believe that. And from the report of Radask and the report of yourselves, you certainly did all you could. It's a lot of money. I think I try and like, this is my kind of point of view. I try and compare it to like things I know from history, whereby often like the like things that were granted for extraordinary service were like small plots of land rather than necessarily, and they could be sold on if they wanted or taken. And the cost of a small kind of like croft or a small farm in Symbaroum is 100 thaler. So I've kind of taken the point of view that an act of extraordinary service is probably generally worth about 100 thaler. And the Countess has decided to grant you extra from her own pocket. So
it's more than we've been paid for anything before, I think. And
yeah.
it's,
I mean, House Viara are probably the second richest house in
yeah.
Ambria. So,
yeah.
Or
As
if
I'm
not,
sure
they're,
will come
they're
up.
certainly up there. So,
As
Do
I'm
I
sure
know...
will come up in conversation, it's modest retirement money.
yeah.
Do I know what house the Countess, like who her father was?
No.
Okay,
Neither do I. So
that's fine.
Well, with all that being said, it seems we have missed a lot of occurrences in the city. We should probably go and try and find out where fortune will guide us next, or misfortune, perhaps.
absolutely, and again, my own thanks and the thanks of House Viara to you. You are shown out of the estate. Captain Haran leads you to the gates of the estate and nods and says, I'm man enough to admit when my first impressions aren't always accurate. As a military man, I can see that you did well, and I heard that you did well. If you are ever in need of money, you should take up the Countess on that offer. House Fiara does reward its military well. So, till the next time I see you.
Till next time, Captain.
Good luck, Captain.
The gates are closed behind you.
Right. Pint?
Time to retire, I reckon.
Yeah. Let's hit the road, but we might need to have a bit of a conversation, because if we're really going splunking for any more forbidden treasures, at some point you have to come to terms with the fact that you might have enough money.
Are we here for money?
I think we might not be
Look,
anymore.
You're at the threshold where any more deeds like this transcend money and start getting into statues territory. And I'd rather not have a statue of me anywhere.
We fetching, Theo.
Perhaps a small statue on the front lawn of the Dar household wouldn't go awry, but
Regardless, before setting out for Volgoma, I have a feeling that this city's not finished with us yet.
Yeah.
And I feel that our next appointment is probably at the tower.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like we should go and rescue Revelia from whatever fate we laid in front of her. I hope she hasn't been bored to death by those two, or worse.
There are worse things than being bored to death.
And she's more of a threat to them than they are to her anyway.
Okay, so we are heading back towards the tower, right?
yes.
Okay. It's not a hugely long walk to do so, probably like 20 minutes, half an hour or so. As you walk through the city, as you did when you came in, you notice that there are even more guardsmen about, and most of them are clearly not proper guardsmen. You get several kind of like slightly suspicious looks at you as you walk by, and in fact, I would like a vigilant roll off everyone as well. So yes from Steo.
Yep.
Yes from Melindra. No from Irondar. Yes from Ascarai.
It is a 20 in case it matters.
It does not. Everyone but Arundar notices you pass a small group of guards who look over you. One of them draws kind of a small kind of like a small piece of slate from their pocket that appears to have kind of some stuff chalked on it, and they glance down at it and then look over at you and nudge one of the other guards and show it to them, and they kind of, there's three of them altogether, and they kind of look over at you and evaluate you quite carefully. One of them like leans over to another one and kind of like says something and shakes their head, and they nod and walk on.
Setting watches tonight, maybe, Alindra. What do you think?
Seems we're famous.
Yeah. Anyone's cool on who it might be that's looking for us. I feel like it could be Brigo, could be the Sun Duchess, could be the Queen, could be anybody else.
I don't mind if it's Marlowe, and I don't mind if it's Ganderald, and anybody else is trouble.
If it's those cell swords, it's going to be no one friendly, let me tell you.
And Tom says, whoever it is, they clearly thought that the three of them did not want to risk confronting us. May I suggest some caution and speed before the next group that notices is 10 strong or 20 strong.
Yeah, we should move on quickly. So the tower at least is defensible-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Are there ways that are more sort of back streets?
Yeah, you can try and find some little backstreet ways, and Arundar will know those. The one time you have to kind of cross a more open street, you notice that a few doors from where you are is kind of like you're kind of in a street with a lot of kind of slightly more upmarket townhouses. And one of them, there is a bunch of guards in front of it, a small crowd of civilians beyond that, and a couple of the windows in the upper part of the townhouse are kind of blackened and charred and have some smoke still pouring out of them. Someone near the front of the building is kind of like wailing and screaming a little and seems to be being comforted by people. And as you walk halfway across the street, you can see that there are a number of bulky, human-sized things being led out of the building, wrapped in material that's soaked through in blood.
It's getting very exciting here. I'd really like to be indoors and maybe in a different country.
Are we just proceeding onwards?
Yeah, I don't think I want to. Matt, like you said, these are quite bulky things. They're not giant bulky, are they?
No.
More...
They're corpses. They're human-sized corpses. You just can't really see what manner of person they are because they're wrapped in, presumably so that people just don't see corpses being dragged through the street.
I think the curiosity to find out what happened is outweighed by the desire to not get involved.
Yeah.
There are like you're on kind of like sort of nearish the edge of the crowd. There are lots of people kind of stood around that you're navigating your way through, and no one is paying attention to you because everyone is looking at the building. But
did we get a look at like what the building is? Like what is the front of the building that they
slightly upmarket townhouse.
Okay, just that's where I was gonna go take a look. He'll go through the crowd a little bit, see if he hears anything, and
sure, give me a vigilant roll.
Okay, that is a 9, which makes it.
You overhear someone saying, "Ladisa, the Theurg, and her whole family, just like that Liturg across town, murdered the servants and burned the families."
That's where we'll take that information and head back to the group and say, sounds like Theurg's entire family and maybe others have just been burnt and killed.
Yeah, I don't
Targeting
like
Theurgs.
Well, didn't the news caller? I can't think of the noun.
Town crier.
Town crier. Was it Theurgs that were attacked by the giants?
Said that mystics have been attacked by the giants, which would, Theurgs practicing mystic powers would count as mystics. It's anyone using mystic powers. That could certainly be the case. I would also like anyone who seems to be kind of like pondering this in any kind of depth can also roll cunning if they want, and I'll give them an extra tidbit. Anton will certainly be thinking about it, so you can go ahead and roll his cunning.
Anton made it. He rolled a 2.
I failed by 1.
Well, we've got one from Anton. It's fine being a NPC passed on thing. Anton says some of the individuals in the elves' embassy were burnt.
That's true.
And that was not the giants.
Burning is the work of the whip, isn't it? Wasn't that what happened in Ravenna?
There was another burning. I remember the criers calling it.
Okay.
Do you?
I mean,
I
the
think
whip
so.
don't have a monopoly on fire.
They don't, but it's been a thing in 2 cities now. And the whip
You may be thinking of the Elves Embassy.
Oh, I thought I was thinking of.
I have
So-
literally, when I do the town crier bit, I'm literally reading out quotes from the book. I have the list of quotes here, and there's nothing about anyone being burned on that either.
Okay.
Seems like at least, I don't know, people are making power plays amongst all this chaos, aren't they? But I mean, maybe the Whip of Prios, maybe alongside Brigo, or could be anybody else.
When the Elves legation was when the people there were slaughtered and the building was burnt, the town crier literally said that people were accusing the Whip of Prios, which is a pretty bold thing for people to be doing. And this seems to be the same MO. Doesn't mean it's the same people, but you know. Okay, I think we're going to reach the tower. You enter the kind of elevator there just fine. No one's lurking, waiting for you or anything like that. When you reach the top and step through to your rooms, you see Revelia. She is sat at the kind of long table, eating some fruit, and looks up and says, "I was worried."
So were
So
we
were
for a
we.
while.
You
Well-
missed quite the party.
You missed a very small party with 4 guests here. The Sun Duchess's agent, about 20 minutes after you left,
Oh.
he arrived, asked how things were progressing. I told him accurate but reserved details, and we agreed that he could take the prisoners. I passed on the letter, and I personally advocated for clemency. I emphasized their seeming ignorance. I cannot say what will happen to them now, though.
It's out of our hands.
It is out of our hands. Do you know what I wish was in my hand, though? Damn pint.
I did tell him you were looking. Let's think. The Viara estate. Did Revelia know you were going to the Viara estate? Did you just like leave and then go to the Viara estate and then go ride straight out?
We
Yeah,
presumably.
I don't think Revelia. I think from Revelia's perspective, we just disappeared for an inordinate amount of time.
Yeah, I think so.
But I don't think she knew.
I think what she tells you that she told the agent is that you were following leads pertaining to Indaros's noble houses. She didn't mention House Viara. Did Esmeralda see the House Viara symbols or was told about them? I honestly can't remember.
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah.
Okay.
I think that was, yeah.
Okay, if the Sun Duchess knows about the potential links to House Viara, then she said House Viara. She told them you were investigating House Viara.
Right.
Yeah, we'd kept a few things a bit quiet, but I don't think the Viara connection was one of those things. I think it was more about like the cell under the cathedral and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think we were being largely honest with her until we picked up that she was lying about the mysterious extra person.
Right. Yeah.
He was quick
Assume we
then. I can only presume
a bellboy or a room service option here in the.
Yeah, sure. You can order up. So you want pints? Yes. You can
pints
order
and plates of meat, and basically we've just finished adventuring. Room service feast, please.
You order up some drinks and food. As you do so, Revelia says, "Oh, and this arrived." She slides it forward on the table. It is a sealed envelope with very formal writing on it, or formal looking writing on it. You can all have a cunning roll at, I'm going to say a cunning roll at -2, apart from Antom, who can take a cunning roll at +1. Ooh.
Just scrape to pass.
Anton just fails by 1. And that's right, fails.
Okay. Elindra, you think that is a wizard's handwriting. They all have a very particular way in which they're taught to scribe. Steo, that's Ganderol's handwriting. You've seen it before. That's Ganderol's handwriting.
At that realization, there will be an audible sigh of relief. That's Ganderol's note. I know his handwriting anywhere.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Unless anybody jumps in
We can
first.
have all day.
Yeah. Unless anybody jumps in first, I will open it and read it.
Okay. It is a very short, precise note telling you that matters in the Triple Towers are quite hectic, but he has managed to secure for you an appointment with the ritual master of the Order Magica. He is called Favano Caldel. He is not currently within the Triple Towers. Instead, he is in a dwelling in a village called Berensberth, which is just to the west of the city, kind of the way you've come, really. He says that you are to attempt to be there at noon tomorrow. And he also personally advises you that Favano Caldel is... Favano Caldel or Cadel? It's spelled different ways here. Okay. Favano Caldel is not the friendliest person.
Have we ever come across, like, aside from Ganderald, a legitimately friendly member of the Order Magica?
Ganderald's master is kind of friendly.
They all seem to be up to something. This also, like, asking us to leave the city, this gets my heckles up. Still think we should go.
I mean, the pay last time was good. I'm not expecting that from the Ordo, but, you know.
Also, perhaps safer outside the city. Doesn't seem like anything good really is happening here. People getting burnt, and I don't know.
Once the food's been delivered and any attendants have left, I will ask, can we take a look at that map?
Don't know who has it.
I think it may have been Antom. He's usually the papers guy.
Yes, I think I remember that. I can't remember if we took the actual map or if we made a copy of it.
I think we took the actual thing.
Yeah, I think we
You're
cut
on mute,
it.
Matt.
It's on the underside of a pelt, and you took the pelt.
No, wait, hang on. One of those is Plob 17, is it? Top right? Sorry, top left?
I think you had determined that Plob 17 could be top left, yeah.
So these are probably all entrances, but still no map of the Undercity.
But an entrance is a good start.
Oh.
So, do we have a working theory on what this is? We found it in Artel's lodgings, right? So this is potentially hiding places for... I've forgotten his name. Calthar.
Calthar?
It's a shame.
Do you mean Artel?
Who was the...
Oh,
the
you mean the places he... Well, I mean, maybe, yeah. You don't know what purpose it's for.
No, But we know that Artel was involved in the ceremony, and that his reasoning for wanting to do it was to get hold of
Calthar, yeah,
Calthar, the Dark Lord.
maybe it seems
and
at least one reason, yeah.
okay, and there was a there was a plan concocted either by him or by Count Viara to like perform the ceremony to extract the prisoner and to have him transported to Plub 17.
Mm-hmm.
So is this a map of possible hiding places of which Plub 17 was eventually selected? Or is this
Well,
Entrances
two
to
of them,
Yindaros.
two of them aren't too far from here. If we are where I think we are.
Aaron, the you know the old city. Is that circled X? Is that the tower?
We shall I tell you what you determined last time, because you're asking a lot of questions that we answered last time.
Yes.
So this, the biggest thing to say about this is it's a map of Indaros. Obviously, and I think we determined by some rolls that most of these roads that are shown on here are like the oldest roads in the city. So I think we took from that perhaps this was something to do with like the Lindaros sort of undercity,
Sure.
which is obviously what you like when you're like, that looks like it might be Plub 17 up at the top left. You're kind of going, well, are they like access points? Are they, or like you say, places to hide Calthar? What are they? I believe it was also noted that the large circle that you're talking about is Old Kadazar, because those are the walls of Old Kadazar.
It's the small circle I was inquiring about, though.
Which,
the one inside the larger circle?
The small circle around the X.
and Tom says that certainly seems to have been picked out, doesn't it?
Yep. That's the most interesting looking of the X's.
Ill fortune that we are the ones owing the dwarves a favour and not the other way around. And also that we've had no business in the old city yet.
Well, we might do now.
I think the optimist in me wants me to believe that could be Artel's hiding place. But
we're very much still missing an Artel, aren't we?
Yeah.
Aaron, none of these are lodgings, are they? Because this is a pretty old building, isn't it?
I think we are perhaps extrapolating a little bit from this. Like, there is literally, this is a huge city. These X's are not like, oh, that's definitely that building. Like, each of these X's covers like, like multiple blocks of buildings.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to pinpoint exact entrances from this.
No way in hell.
I will still assure Steo that none of the X's are on top of us.
They're not, no. One of them is sort of near Is it near Zoltar? No, it's not massively near Zoltar.
Well,
but it's certainly not the tower. The tower is along that central line that comes down from where the harbour is, and it isn't. None of the X's are near it.
Well, the problem is, it's not particularly based on the little slate incident with the cell swords today. It's probably not safe for us to assume we have the run of the upper city. At some point, we might be taken in, and awkward questions might be asked. So we should try and, I don't know, do we just go for the closest? Start asking questions and dig down?
I think we should investigate the one with the circle. There's so many that if we just investigate all of them, I mean, it could take forever. We got to pick the one we think is most likely.
Counterpoint, we know that there is an entrance to the Undercity in Plub 17. We know how to get there. We know the dwarves tend to leave quickly and cleanly when they've been rumbled. So
But
do
we
we
have-
go there and just use this as a map to move through the cavern system to the other one?
I would
There's no
say when,
guarantee. Sorry.
I would say when you went to Plop 17, you didn't find any access to the Undercity.
Yeah, we were in some areas that felt like they might be Lindaros, right? Old. but
Yeah, yeah.
not
When you were
necessarily
down
that-
where Kalfar was being held, but there was no way out of that. Like it was all
Yeah.
kind of bordered by like, old rock falls and stuff like that. So
yeah, there were no like tunnels we didn't explore that looked like they might open out into the network.
There's
And
no
even if there
guarantee
were,
that.
sorry, Aaron.
There's no guarantee that even if all of Lindaros is connected, that it's still connected. It's been,
I don't want to spend that much time underground.
that is our thing.
We should be pretty frank as well at this stage. I mentioned it before, but just to reiterate it, we've been warned not to go under Yndaros by the Iron Pact. Explicitly. I'm probably going to ignore that warning. But just so we know.
Have we been? When were we warned?
Well, maybe I was warned.
Ah,
I think that before we continue chasing Symbar in whatever form that takes, the more immediate pressing concern is this investigation. And in particular, if we can, trying to find Artel. Because I do not like the idea that Artel is still out there in the world. The same with Count Biara. That does not make Ambria feel safe to me.
Yeah. And that's why I'm probably going to be ignoring any more elfish warnings about going under the city. Because I might be able to do some good under there.
Well, if going under the city is the way that leads us to Artel, then sure. But if we're doing it because we think it might follow up the leads to Symbar that we came here for in the first place, I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but I'm saying I think we have higher priorities in the short term.
The one thing one of many things we don't know is what Artel really wants from all this that he's doing. I think it's possible that his goal in some way also involves Symbar or Symbaric artifacts or ruins, and it might be that it lines up in that way. But I agree that I think our priority has to be find Artel and deal with him in one way or another.
Good.
Yes.
So this one, treasure hunting is off the books. This is a disrupt evil plot operation. Although, given the condition that hitherto the person in this world who I most wanted to kill, I simply handed over to the authorities literally earlier this week, I get the funny feeling Artel's going to have words for us.
Well,
But the minute he starts going on, the moment he starts going on about the legacy of Symbar and Ambria's rightful place, I'm probably going to put a spear through him for real this time. No thinking about it.
Yeah, we need to get to him to be able to make that decision.
I think before much else, we should eat, get some of this horrible Viara compound dust off of us with baths, catch Revelia up on why we've been gone for an entire day, and maybe see about getting medical attention for example, anyone who got stabbed through by an ogre.
That's fair. We take the rest of the day off. Unless, Anton, do you want to roll this up? Because we probably shouldn't be showing this to our handler.
I hope that he trusts that we're releasing information as it becomes ready, and not before.
So we take the day off. Tomorrow afternoon, bright and early, we leave town again. We go to this.
We need to be there by 12.
Yeah.
So leave tomorrow morning.
We return back via Old Kadazar. And maybe our luck holds and we get to play the tourists once more and scope this area out from above ground.
Taking the rest of the day off does mean we're not getting to this until a full day has passed.
That is true.
What time of day is it?
Right now, you're definitely in evening time now.
And curfew's going to be starting soon, I imagine.
Then we're doing nothing today.
Yeah.
I think it is worth speaking to Caldel. I'm slightly nervous given the news that's coming out of the Ordo about what sounds like some kind of schism, and not knowing entirely where Caldel's.
I think schism isn't certainly a power struggle. But
Yes,
the top guy got killed.
Yeah.
So now, yeah.
But like Artel presumably was not without friends and allies.
I mean, everyone thinks he's dead.
It's true. Where am I getting my heebie-jeebies for Ordo then?
I don't know.
Is it just that there's a power struggle?
Yeah, I guess so.
And someone's
Just
murdering.
maybe
Mystics.
hate academics.
I mean, there were Ordo mages helping Artel. It's not crazy to think there could be more who are still, somewhere within the Order that didn't help directly or who have escaped capture for now.
It's been recruiting, so we need to not necessarily automatically assume that that Caldel won't in some way have divided loyalties. That's all.
Well,
but I still think you should see him.
You know me, Alindra, I walk into the privy assuming it's a trap.
And one day you won't make that privy roll and it'll be true.
Is that the next step of elderly?
Yeah, treating the privy like it's a mimic.
And what about
Sam's had enough.
What about who's our the Sun Duchess's handler? What's his name again?
Marlowe?
Question. Marlowe. Yeah, that's good that you remember it.
I think it would be very handy if he showed up tomorrow, because I think a little bit of information exchange there, moderated as it may be, would help us a lot.
Given that he appears to have this place under surveillance, I wish that we had some pre-arranged way of letting him know that we'd quite like a chat.
I'm sure he'll know. Once word that we've returned to the city comes back, he'll probably make his way to us.
He probably knew when we crossed the city threshold. What I'm more interested in is the little trinkets we have from the Sun Duchess. How long before they run out, given the city's basically under Curia control at this stage? Through a phenomenally ragtag-looking bunch of sellswords.
Like, her name presumably still carries weight for as long as her family holds the throne.
Which might be a limited time, given that she might have two houses, a gang of wildlings, and a ritual mage seeking her downfall.
Sure, but preparing for that eventuality is, if not treason, then certainly adjacent to treason.
I think if House Kohinoor falls, then we will have bigger problems than we can plan for.
Look, plenty of trees in the forest.
Does that mean it's just there's so many queens.
Yeah, basically. There are effectively an infinite number of queens.
That's just the metaphysics of that is in my mind.
I am torn because I want nothing more than to flee this city at first glance and leave it to whatever's going to happen to it. But in this one instance, I might yet be able to do some good.
We can't not to try to secure the safety and future of Ambria, if that's within our grasp. And right now, it is. There are things that we can do to try to keep Ambria safe.
We should cash in all of those writs, so if the currency collapses, we won't be too badly affected.
Steo's just a prepper. Cool. Do we feel like there's more to do in this particular conversation, or are we kind of approaching the limits of usefulness now?
I'm satisfied with our level of party faff.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna start catching Revere up on what she's missed.
Okay. So is there anything more we want to accomplish this evening, whether that's kind of role-playing wise or more functional, now that you are in the relative safety of the tower?
If anybody happens to fancy wanting to do some medicus rolls, Revelia is still in a bad way.
I'm not sure anyone can they? You've not taken
Revelia,
any
though.
new...
I suppose, did everyone work on
yeah, I
Revelia
suppose
last
not.
time?
You've not taken
Right,
any
okay,
new
I got out my
damage.
dagger.
That said, how many days has it been? Because she might have recovered some toughness over the last day.
She will have recovered. Well, I don't know when you. I mean, the answer to that is I don't know when you last recovered toughness for her. But one night has passed, so she should have at least one extra toughness.
That's fine.
And then, so is there anything else this evening that you want to do, role playing wise, or mechanically, or anything?
Let's set a watch, I think. I will definitely moot setting a watch.
Yeah.
Okay.
But other than that, yeah, I don't think Steo's going to be up for doing too much other than cleaning the gristle off his armor, and there'll be no baths for this one.
You're not having a bath. You're not washing any of the corrupt dust or gore off yourself.
Getting it off the outer layers, but kind of in military mode at the minute.
The military
Aaron will
people have
strongly suggest that Steo has a bath.
We have to share an apartment with you, Steo.
If we're going to be trying to befriend this mage tomorrow, then you don't want to make a poor impression.
Yeah. No one wants to see the abominable pig gore on you, Steo.
Right, well, yous are all forming a wash, and I'm having one bucket of warm water, and that's it. It's not the time to be clean, it's the time to be careful.
Anytime we are dealing with other people,
Can I just flag up what you think is not careful about washing?
Just it's how the scrimblies get in, through the water.
Oh yeah, because you get the flux if you bathe too much.
Can I just say that's okay? I won't start on my historical inconsistencies thing.
Indra's going to prepare a bucket of warm water containing. Sorry, Matt.
It's okay. People did think that at one point, but A, they thought about cold water. B, people think it's a medieval thing. It's not a medieval thing. It's much later than the medieval period. In the medieval period, which this is an analog to, people were fastidiously clean about themselves and publicly bathed in wherever they could, daily if they could do so.
There's literally a public spa here, right? Like across the town.
Yeah, there are baths here, but people would just bathe in like public waters and whatever.
Elindra's going to prepare Theo a bucket of warm water containing several cups of warm water, each of which contains like some thimbles of warm water.
Thimbles of warm water.
It's just a recursive bath.
Warm water all the way down, young man.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, you all have a wash. Steo less than the others to be safe. And is there anything else we want to do for the evening, or can we roll over to the morning?
I'm happy to roll over.
Okay. Well, number one, everyone regains another point of toughness. Number two, through the night, let me see who's the first person on watch.
I think it's probably me.
Who's the second person on watch?
Sure.
Me. Okay.
Oh.
Elindra.
You know, you both said it. I'll Elindra, sure.
Right.
Oh my God.
Roll a dice.
Roll a fucking die for it. It's Elindra. Okay. Elindra, can you roll vigilant at +3, please?
Let's give that a go. Need a 13. Get a 19. That's great.
Okay.
That's how exciting roleplay happens.
Ascarise next. Give me a vigilant roll at +4, please.
Okay. I need a 20. I got a 16.
As you are taking over from Elindra, you take a quick glance out of the windows and notice not one but two kind of glowing spots on the skyline of Indaros. Both of them are to the west of where you are now. Could you give me a cunning roll at, you know what, you made that roll, a cunning roll at +4, please.
I rolled a 10, which does make it.
Okay. Two very large buildings are on fire in the western part of Indaros. You can distantly hear some kind of commotion over there, but not, it's far enough that you can just hear that there's there's a commotion happening. You can't see the kind of plumes of smoke rolling into the sky, but only because it is very dark out there. But they seem to be, it's kind of conflagration level, two buildings almost entirely on fire. You think that one of them, if it's not Zoltar's Inn, it's damn close. But Zoltar's Inn is one of the tallest buildings in that area, and you think it's on fire. The other one is kind of, let me get this right. The other building that's on fire is closer to you. It's almost exactly halfway between the two of you, in fact. You don't know what that is.
I'm going to wake the others up at this point. 2 fires have been set. One of them might be even intended for us. I'm going to wake people up and say, something's happening. More buildings are on fire. How often do buildings catch on fire, Aaron?
It's not unusual, but usually not twice in one night, streets apart from each other.
After several other buildings have been burnt down over the preceding days. Mm-hmm. No, this is either citywide clumsiness or very intentional.
I did think one of them could even be Zoltar's. So I don't know if that bodes poorly for us. I mean, might not be, but it's that kind of direction.
It could be they were targeting a barbarian establishment. The pattern we found so far is the elves and barbarians.
Aaron Dar, roll cunning at +4.
Oh dear.
Uh-oh.
Oh. 11. 4. That is a success.
Okay, let me just get something right. 1 second. You are, from looking at the position of things and kind of looking out the window at this glow on the skyline, you're almost certain that there's a strong possibility that the other building on fire could be an inn called the Depths of the Titans. It is notably owned by a dwarven family.
Weren't we in that pub at some point?
Yes, you were. Yes, you were. That's where you met the patriarch. I'd forgotten about that, but yes, you were.
So elves, Theurgs, barbarians, and dwarves.
The ogres did it.
Two inns that we've been seen at.
But also, we know there's kind of dwarf, I don't know, criminal activity. Maybe part of it is that.
Where are we going to stay tomorrow?
I mean, this is an Ambrian establishment, so maybe here is safest. I don't like our chances of getting out if the ground floor set ablaze.
Perhaps the second watch at street level?
No, too risky. What if the cell swords disappear? One of us.
Then we should just try not to get set on fire.
Yeah. Or we should, I don't know, set camp outside the city. We're going to be outside later on anyway, if we can get. Or go into the refugee camps, the slums. No one's going to burn anything there. There's nothing worth burning.
But to leave now means going against curfew.
Oh, not now. The royal now, tomorrow evening.
Let's see how tomorrow goes.
Well, I'm going to try and get some more rest if it's at all possible. Aaron, I'm not enjoying this trip to your home city. I'm sorry.
That's fair. It's certainly an exciting city. You can't deny that, Stio.
I just wanted to go to the gallery and see some paintings of Alberto. Stio will mumble back into his chamber.
I don't think it's entirely the city's fault. I think at a point it might be us. I'll wander back into my room looking slightly upset.
Okay. Anything else before we try and all get some more rest? Okay. You all wake in the morning. A look over the skyline shows that there are two large columns of smoke rising into the air from both the buildings that were on fire last night. You don't see anything new and alarming extra other than that. So I believe the plan was to get up relatively early and make our way to the relatively nearby village of Berensberth.
Yes. Does the route to whatever west-facing gate out of the city that would take us there take us anywhere near either of those places?
It can do, or it does not have to, depending on your preference. You can definitely pick a very direct route that leads you back past both those places, or you could try and swing wide from them as much as possible, depending on your motivation for the question, Stephen.
Indra will put it to the others that maybe it's worth a look on the way past. Perhaps see if we can find somebody that can tell us what happened and confirm which buildings it was.
Yeah, back streets though. I don't want to get arrested this morning.
Let's be careful.
Okay. As soon as you leave the tower, the streets have an even more tense atmosphere than they have done recently. You very swiftly pass a town crier, who are very handy to have on hand for me to dispense meta information about the goings on to you. This one is crowing at the top of their lungs. Zoltar's in, and the depth of the Titans in flames. All guests cut down before the fire. Perpetrators unknown, but presumed to be troubled citizens.
I think you might be onto something, Aaron. I think someone's got it in for us.
That saves us a visit.
No, I think someone's got it in for non-Ambrians.
I suppose we'll find out tonight, won't we?
Okay. Are you still going via the things and taking a look, or? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first one you reach, I've forgotten already. It is Zoltar's Inn, isn't it? No, it's not. It's the Depth of the Titans. It is first. You pass it. It has been fairly gutted by the fire. There is, like I said, a vast column of twisting black smoke above it. There are many people stood around and near it. There are Ambrians. There are more than a few dwarves. You see that there are some dwarves who are going in and out of the building. They are wearing kind of very heavy, dampened cloths around their mouths and their heads. But you see that even still, a couple of them are kind of like sat down, coughing and retching on the ground from inhaling too much smoke and ash. There are a great number of curled up, blackened bodies that have been dragged out and placed in rows just in front of the inn. There are a great many people nearby. You have to kind of like sort of push through a crowd. Yeah. Are you moving on from this?
I have a question about how we would like interpret what the town crier has said.
Mm-hmm.
Would we think that he means everybody has been killed by the fire?
No, it sounds like the way most people would interpret it, because in almost all pre-modern times, it was a very common way of going about killing an entire building of people, was that someone set fire to the building, and anyone who didn't get killed by the fire, who ran out of the front, got cut down.
Okay.
If anyone's familiar, it obviously wasn't called this all the way through history, but if anyone's familiar with the concept of a hall burning, that's what that is. That's how you would interpret what the town crier said. Essentially, an orchestrated. I guess it could kind of happen accidentally, in that people could be angry and the fire could be sort of accidental, but then they decide to kill her. But it's a fairly like. It's a way to either intentionally orchestrate a massacre or for a massacre just to happen through mob anger.
Okay.
Speaking to the others in the party, like, why would the city folk be so angry? What are we missing?
Also, on that extra guard and a curfew, like, how is this happening without any kind of the watch getting involved? There's a huge fire.
Presumably, it's either in spite of the curfew or the watch turned a blind eye.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, in the same way that it was a good question to interpret how, like, what you would interpret by what the town crier said. Let's also tweak our minds to the notion of a world where a violent, murderous pogrom is not like, how could this happen? And more like, okay. You know what I mean? Which is also pretty much any other time in human history other than now.
But
and
are we talking
arguably
about? Are we talking about this being a potentially predictable outcome of people's fear about what happened to the Cathedral of Martyrs?
something really bad happening in most pre-modern societies will lead to a group of people being blamed and targeted. And it
so
doesn't kind of matter whether it makes any sense.
So the target is somewhat nebulous. It's just not Ambrians.
I mean, literally, I'm saying any other time, but literally, our entire modern political system is focused on that actual thing. Only people aren't being whoreburned about it yet. So that's the mob is the mob.
It does seem like the things that have happened in the city, like the curfew and the extra guard, are almost like specifically to prevent this kind of thing happening at nights, and yet it's still happening.
Everyone knows when you oversubscribe armed security militia force in a city that it never leads to escalation of things happening in a bad way.
Mm.
Cool.
This isn't this isn't my commentary.
Yeah, was just trying to get a sense of whether there was like some like specific
yeah, I mean you won't know
issue that was causing
you won't know unless you ask. Like you could easily, the biggest tension in the city culturally by far will be barbarians and Ambrians.
Sure. Yeah.
And the Cathedral of Prios was targeted.
Yeah.
By magic corruption that comes from the forest.
Yeah. So anything a bit weird or a bit foreign.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you remind me where the groom and the groom's party were staying? Were they staying at the palace, or were they staying at Zoltar's Inn?
The immediate royalty were at the palace, and the others were at Zoltar's Inn.
Okay.
But almost every barbarian of means who stays in the city will probably stay at Zoltar's Inn.
Right.
Just like every dwarf visitor will probably stay at the Depth of the Titans. Because they're owned by those cultures.
So, the best thing that we can do for Indoros is to try to get answers into the right ears as soon as we can. In the hope that shedding some light on all of this will stem some of this speculation. So we go west, right?
Let's go.
Where the air is clear. That was an incredibly niche reference for two of you.
Incredibly niche. It was #1 for like 6 months.
Yeah, in a time when we were alive.
In the olden days.
The problem isn't that it's niche. The problem is that it's a bit of a tonal whiplash.
Literally 2/5 of the people on this stream were not alive when that song was released. So,
And of course, it's never been played or used in any form of advertisement or popular disco since.
I literally don't know if it has or not. I
thought it was have no clue what we're talking about.
There you go. I thought it was a relatively obscure entry.
Stop.
Even though it was successful at the time, I thought it was a relatively obscure entry in the Pet Shop Boys catalogue.
Sam, I'm disgusted vindicating Matt like that. How dare you?
I just need to speak up for all the people in the chat who are feeling like, oh God, I don't get this reference and everyone else does. How embarrassing. I'm speaking up for those people.
It's no
being old again.
It's a sin reference, is it? That's all I'm saying. Or West End Girls or something. That's all. Okay. Yeah, it is weird. Quoting Pet Shop Boys. About 10 minutes ago, I was talking about burned bodies.
I've also just
So,
realized I was thinking of the Village People song, so I
Oh.
rescind everything I said.
is it maybe a Village People cover? I don't know. I think it might have been a cover when they did it. Maybe.
I mean, it's all a cover of the USSR national anthem.
Oh yeah, it's a cover.
Yeah. Well, there we go then. I was aware it was a cover. I didn't know if it was the Village People, but that kind of makes sense. So, as you move, are you going past Zoltar's Inn, or are you just kind of?
I think we'll stick to the plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you're moving on the street between the two, you notice a number of groups of guards moving through the kind of sporadic crowds. They seem to be checking lists and looking around them, and sort of looking at people.
Okay.
Are we proceeding onwards, or are we going to try and avoid this situation?
I got the heebie-jeebies, Aaron. Can we take some side streets?
Yeah, I will try and find another route.
Okay. Arindar, then, can you give me a discreet roll at plus? Let's see what their vigilant is. It's flat. I'm gonna give you a plus. I'm gonna give you a +3 for it.
Okay. There's a target of 12. And a 3.
Okay. You quickly manage to negotiate your way through some side streets. You're going to have to skip round Zoltar's Inn to do this, unless you want to roll discreet again to get back there.
No, I think I'm.
Okay.
I will tell people we're skipping around Zoltar's Inn, unless anyone argues.
Okay. You start moving towards the Western Gate. When you're about halfway there and kind of walking along the side of a large, it's kind of one of the main streets that leads directly towards the Western Gate. You see, in fact, leads past the remains of the Cathedral of Martyrs. You see a number of other guard groups. They're sort of slowly moving through the city in coordinated groups. Are you going to try and avoid them again?
Are these the cell swords, or are these legit?
They all look like they're the newer city guard.
I think all guards are cell swords at the moment. I will try and avoid them again.
Okay. Can you give me another discreet roll? This time you can have +4.
13. 8.
Okay. Once again, this time you slip to the south and come back up towards the city gate. As you approach the city gate, you see it's the same guards there from yesterday. The one who was quite boorish towards you all takes a couple of steps forward and says, "I suppose you have your pretty little note again."
I do.
Let's see it. He holds his hand out for it.
I believe I showed it to you yesterday, sir.
Can you give me a persuasive roll, please? Just a flat one. Actually, you could take a +1 because you did kind of out. You didn't intimidate him, but you persuaded. You did a bit of browbeating on him yesterday. So
Okay. There's a target of 12. And a 15. That's a fail.
we sticking with it?
Yes.
Okay. Go on. Hand it over. I need to check it.
Do we only have the one?
Mm-hmm.
I will take it out. I will not give it to him. I will hold it, and I will visibly also have a handful of Thala in the hand that I'm holding it in.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to give you make a persuasive roll again at plus. Just +5.
+5. Target of 16. Come on. Come on, 100 Thala Dar, you can do it. 1.
His outreached hand towards your paper turns from this to this. And he's like looking over his shoulder.
I will shake his hand.
He's just looking for you to drop coins in it.
Yeah, but I'm doing it subtly. I will shake his hand with the Thala and then leave the...
You just said that you had the paper in your hand. I don't think you can have paper and coins and shake someone's hand.
All right.
In one hand. Because that's what you said.
Yeah, all right. I will give him the Thala.
Sure. It's just underneath it. You're just dropping. It's fine. Sorry, simulationist GM problems.
In my head, I was like holding the paper like that, and the Thala were like in the bottom hand. So like sort of.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter.
Whatever. It doesn't. We do it your way. You do it your way. Stop doing this, Matt.
Stop. Just stop.
Stop objecting to things just because they're a physical impossibility. Yeah. How many Thala did you give him?
I give him 5.
Yeah, you got +1 for each Thala. That makes sense. That's a lot of money. Yeah, sure. He kind of looks down and his eyes sort of bulge slightly as he sees what's in his hand and he goes, have a good day. Good day. And he's kind of like waving and desperately tucking the money before his compatriots see it.
I'll head off.
Okay. You are out on the road. Berensberth starts off being in the same direction, away from. Are you walking? I got the impression you were all walking.
Yeah, I did think as we were leaving that we
hired
probably
some
should have got horses.
You can hire horses from just the stables near the gate if you want.
I say we do that.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sure there is a thing for hiring a horse somewhere here. We can sort out the money for it later. Who's the group quartermaster these days in terms of player?
We don't everyone keeps their own cash.
I know, but someone just volunteered to take responsibility for trying to look up how much this costs later, because I will forget otherwise.
I would if I could.
Okay.
I volunteer.
Thank you, Stephen. So, okay. Yeah, if you're riding, then Berensberth is probably about an hour's ride away from the city. It's a lot closer than the Viara estate, and you start out on the same road, but then sort of veer off to the south into kind of like wide rolling farmland. And it's not a massively pleasant ride. It's a crisp winter's day. There's no snow or anything, but it's not very warm, and there's a slight drizzle that starts shortly after you set off. You swing your horses round to the south when you get the opportunity to kind of move off the main road, and you're on a kind of like a wide earthen path that leads you south for another 20 minutes or so before you arrive at a small, I want to say a hamlet, but does a hamlet have to be on the coast? No. There is a way. I'm going to call it a hamlet. You arrive there, and there is Ganderald's note just says, "Go to Berensberth and ask for him, and someone will definitely be able to point you where the wizard is staying." And that's it, really. That's all he said. Berensberth seems, certainly a lot quieter and less tense than the city. There's no particular guards or anything here. You can see that some market stalls are being set up for the day. It's a modest-sized settlement. There are people roaming around looking at you a bit curiously, carrying your big, weapons on your fine horses. Fine-ish.
Any of these houses kind of look apart from the others?
No, not really. They're mostly, there are ones that are slightly larger and nicer than the others, but they're mostly relatively humble dwellings. There are a few that are, maybe none of them will have a second floor or anything, but they're all, none of them are bad either. These would be relatively more well-off, quote-unquote, peasants for living in such a close proximity to the capital city.
I think I'll just flag down someone who looks somewhat friendly and ask if they know where the wizard is.
Yeah, there's a middle-aged woman who has given you kind of a smile and a cheery wave as she sets out. Kind of, she's one of the ones setting out the stall, and she has kind of let's say kind of baskets of fruit and some bread for sale. She says, "Oh, are you after the alchemist, Everleader?" "No, she's away. I heard there was someone staying in her home, though. Maybe that's another wizard."
Could you point me towards her home?
"Of course. It's just at the end of this street there. It's the house with all the herbs hanging off the outside."
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, miss.
I take it you're proceeding down the street. You stop outside the house. She indicated it is again it's quite a large. It's quite a large cottage, and it has sort of deep eaves under which are big bundles of herbs that have kind of been left out to dry in the relative dry and warmth of the eaves of the house. You can hear a slight ruckus inside, not an alarming one, but there's definitely someone muttering something loudly and the sound of furniture moving a little bit.
I think that's a good point to interrupt. So I'm going to knock on the door. I want to get in there before sigils start being drawn.
Okay. You knock on the door, and a few moments later, an individual dressed in kind of Ordo novice robes opens the door, and as they do so, there is a loud shout from somewhere behind them going, "No! Catch them!" A small dark shape is darting out from the door.
Can I try and catch it?
Give me a quick roll, please.
Let me check. 14. Hello. 16.
Is anyone else going to try and make the quick roll?
If we
I
can.
go.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
well,
a
I'll tell
fail.
you what. I don't want everyone to do it for Matt's previous reasons, so I will abdicate.
Ascarado 1.
I mean, I think that'll do it. Ascarai, you duck down and when a small animal is running past you and you kind of turn its run into picking it up, like it sort of just runs into your hands and you just kind of lift it up, and you are being observed from your hands by a relatively small black cat, which is sort of looking at you in a very grumpy way. And the voice from inside says, "Come on in then and close the bloody door."
That's right. We'll walk in, holding the cat at a extended arm's length into the building.
A short and sort of, he's quite old, but it's often quite difficult to tell how old an old wizard actually is, because a great many very powerful wizards have extended their lifespan by decades or even centuries as part of their practices. But he's quite short, quite broad, with a scrub of like grey hair and a slightly wizened face. In another form of media, he would be running kind of a New York pizzeria that may or may not be a legitimate business concern. And he kind of grabs the cat off you and says, "Thank you, sir. Thank you. It is difficult. There are 17 of them here, and 16 of them don't know that they should not be trying to escape while I am staying away from my apartments." You immediately become aware of being observed by a great many pairs of small feline eyes that are looking out at you from on top of cabinets, under tables. The place has a certain aroma, not awfully so, but there are definitely cats here. The old wizard kind of like peers at you, and like he's just wearing kind of Ordo master robes, but they're very plain. There's not much ornamentation to them. There's no kind of like fripperies or jewelry or anything like that. He peers at you and he says, "Mask, what are you? Northerner? Changeling? Elf? Haven't talked to an elf in a while. That would be interesting."
I'm at least the first two. Some people would say all three.
Changeling. How do you find that?
With the mask, not so bad. Hence the mask.
I can imagine. Put all your sodding weapons down near the door. They make me nervous.
How do meerkats and domesticated cats get along?
With a great deal of curiosity.
Okay, that's good. As long as it's not prey driven.
He's
cool.
not immediately looking at them as food, no.
Good. That's all right then.
A wild meerkat certainly might, but Farron is somewhat domesticated. That's a big one.
Thank you. He's a meerkat. I found him in a cage.
I know he's a meerkat. Still, interesting. Tried to domesticate a meerkat once. Don't have the knack for it that the barbarians do. You don't look like a barbarian. Found it in a cage?
Yes, I think it may have been bought from a barbarian. But I inherited it from someone who was no longer alive.
Well, come in, sit down. He leads you into a rather nicely appointed room. It's not like fancy and, upper classish, because you are in a large cottage, but it is very comfortable and has some very large kind of long sofas with plump cushions on them. It also has a wall filled top to bottom with scrolls and tomes of various kinds. He gestures towards the places to seat and then rounds on his novice and says, "Well, they caught the cat, didn't they? Which you didn't do, I would note. Get something from the pantry, the good stuff." He rounds on you again. Ganderold? Is that his name? He's a changeling too. Is that how you know him?
We know him from Thistlehold. He's been a good friend to us and a good companion.
I hear good things about him, but one can never tell when these are exaggerations. Still, what can I do for the heroes of the sinkhole?
Audible
He throws himself down on a large pile of cushions, not on the couch, but kind of on the floor, and sits cross-legged, where he acts as a kind of slow nexus of weaving feline bodies.
Ganderald felt that you would be the ideal person to share some insights on the recent attack on the Cathedral of Martyrs.
Yes, the Starfall. That is what it is called in lore. Starfall. A ceremony. Obviously, I haven't taken much study of it in recent decades. I used to be the ceremony master, you know. Ritualist master now. Down in the world, that's what that is.
Well, it seems that the practice of ceremonies is alive and well.
Yes, for better or worse. The novice comes in with plates loaded with, these are described quite elaborately in the book. They call them cookies. I feel like that's a little anachronistic, so I will call them biscuits. They are butter biscuits with whipped cream and almond flakes, which are passed out among you. And the wizard kind of gestures at the one plate left and kind of like reaches out and snaps the remaining biscuit in half and says, "You get a half for nearly letting one of them out. Make it up to me and you can have the other half later." The novice says, "Yes, master."
What age is this novice who I'm feeling very
like
solidarity with?
Mid-20s. A
Oh,
woman in her
poor
mid-20s.
creature. This is our quest now. We have to break them free.
No, our quest is to befriend all the cats.
So what is it that you want to know from me? How ceremonies are performed, what it takes to stage them, what side effects they can cause, the specifics of this starfall? Do you care about that? Really?
Well,
or
this
are
is
you after more why it may have been performed and by whom?
Yeah, there we go. All of the questions, the easy questions that you just posited there, we would have asked yesterday, but well, we kind of saw the ritual site yesterday.
Did you? Tell me of it.
In the Viara estate.
Now that is interesting, isn't it?
I-
The Viara estate. Political then, perhaps?
Incredibly political. I figured it would be best if we just put all of our cards on the table immediately, given you're a busy man, and these events seem to be quite high stakes. Obviously, with an event such as that, it took its toll in blood and corruption.
I'll fish out my notebook where I sketched the scene of the ritual site, and show it to him to see if it's of any interest.
Have you noted down like positions of bodies and stuff like that?
Yeah, I was trying to capture as much information about the scene as I could, like just how the space was set up, where the bodies were, what symbols I could kind of identify and replicate.
Did they? How had these people died?
We believe the rite was sabotaged.
I will describe how we found the bodies, which, if I recall, most of them had some sort of blade wounds on them.
Some of them.
Some had been like thrown clear.
I will describe it to you if you want.
Yes, please.
I don't know why I'm looking in here. I can look in my notes.
Right, some had sort of like wounds that could be from abominations or beasts of some kind.
Yeah.
There's stab wounds, burnt edges, there's claws, blunt force.
Yeah, killed by claws, bites, blunt force trauma, 2 stab wounds with burnt edges, and Count Brigo just by what looked like a sword thrust to the neck, and someone else had been burned to death. That's interesting, isn't it? Would you think it is normal? Do you suppose that this level of corruption be inflicted on the area where a ceremony is being carried out? There is always some corruption. But do you think that they would choose to do this to themselves?
I think perhaps most of the people involved were not aware of exactly what they were doing.
Of course not. But the efficient still was. They would have to know, or they wouldn't be able to carry it out properly. I'm clearly moving too fast. A ceremony opens a gate. On the other side is corruption. It spills out. And since the starfall was a relatively modest and light effect, I see surprise on your faces.
Again, we have no frame of reference for how powerful ceremonies can become and what effects are possible. Certainly looks like a light effect.
The starfall was an extremely modest version of this ceremony. The destruction, as far as I understand, was limited to the cathedral itself, yes? In terms of the direct destruction from the impact.
So it was...
Yes.
And the surrounding area.
And the one during the war leveled a city?
It would take an extraordinary amount of control to limit the impact of the starfall to this degree. One which I don't believe this group had. The only other conclusion is that the corruption that was intended spilled out in other ways. And if the corruption that was intended spilled out in other ways, that would imply the ceremony did not go according to plan.
I think I'm beginning to have some theories then. So if, for example, I was a third party in this political wrangling and wanted to remove witnesses, bearing in mind there are certain members of this group who we believe are unaccounted for in the bodies we found, could this have been a engineered sabotage? Treachery on both sides of the circle. I don't think that's far-fetched. But where are they now?
The wizard waves it off as if that's not an interesting question. Well, aren't you going to ask me?
Where are they now?
No. Come on. You're going to ask me about someone, aren't you?
Let's talk about Artel.
Yes.
Artel. The engineer of Black Harass. You've heard of it?
Yes.
What it was? Most impressive. I mean, he lost control of it, but it spilled out in a different way.
In what way?
It did not spill out to the corruption site. The impact was wider than he wished. He wished to devastate part of the city and the Dark Lord's forces. He did that. He also took the rest of the city and several legions of House Kohenor. That's why they did away with him. I met him once, long ago, before that, visiting his teacher. He was a stout and quiet man, observant in an unsettling way. But that was far more than half a century ago. If you want to know more about him, though, about Black Harass, about that Starfall, the last Starfall until now, shouldn't you talk to someone who was there?
Such as?
Why come bothering me? Well, that's an interesting question, because it tells me you have not thought of that yet. He sort of claps his hands in delight a little bit.
If we're talking about members of the Ordo Magica that may have been there, we have found access difficult these last few days.
There are more than the Ordo there. They're wrapped up in their boring internecine squabbling. Who would want to talk to them at the moment? General Herengol was there, of course. But he's probably on his way to Karvosti. Kathia Melion. Have you heard of her?
Why does that ring a bell?
It probably doesn't ring a... There's Arendar roll cunning at -5. That's the only person I'm giving a vague chance to have heard of Kathia Melion.
I've forgotten where I put my phone. There it is. I think at a -5, I literally need a 1. Oh, no. No, my cunning is 7. I roll a 7, so no.
No one's ever heard of her.
I've got
We
two.
know a Count Melion.
Yeah.
Where do you know them from? I'm just interested.
The Secretorium.
All right, okay.
I also have Fenring down as Fenring Melion. I don't know
Oh,
if
he
that-
might be. He might be. Again, these are sprawling noble
Yeah.
families. She was his adjutant at the battle and experienced the side effects of the Starfall firsthand. It knocked her unconscious, and when she woke up, deformed, body and soul. Many of the nobles suffered the same fate or worse. Blightborn killed on the spot, fled towards unknown destinations in the Black East. Many of those who developed stigmas perished in episodes of severe angst, suicide. But not her. People say she refused to give in. She lives in the refugee camp in the city. That's all I know of her, really.
Does she
But
live there?
unless you can catch up with the general on his way to Karvosti. That's the only person nearby who I know was at Harass.
I
We
didn't
haven't
catch her
had-
first name, Matt. What was it?
Kathia.
Does she
Kathia.
live? Does she live there by choice or by circumstance?
I do not know. But she has been there for years, if rumor is to be believed.
What do you know of what happened to Artel after Black Harass? Because the generally
Oh.
accepted
They kill him.
right.
An
And
example. It was a silly mistake, really. I'm not sure it warranted death. I suppose there was a lot of blood on his hands. There was a lot of blood on everyone's hands back then.
So, what's interesting is that we've been under the impression that it was Artel himself that was responsible for this ceremony.
Why?
Because we captured some of his foot soldiers, for want of a better word.
It is a man calling himself Artel, at least.
That is interesting.
Are there any ceremonies that can mitigate death? Perhaps delay an execution?
One does not need a ceremony to mitigate death. The magics that have kept me alive for 150 years, they were not ceremonies. One cannot carry out ceremonies anymore. Not according to the law.
But if you're already being executed for a crime, more crime probably doesn't cause much of a restriction.
This is a rabbit hole.
Okay.
Like he said, you don't need a ceremony. So, what do you mean? Do you think are you saying is there a ceremony that means you can escape an execution somehow? Because that's kind of not how these work.
No, never mind. It doesn't matter.
There's not like an anti-execution ceremony. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what you mean by it, really.
I suppose like a resurrection.
Oh, I mean, if you ask him that question rather than the one you asked, then he would shrug and say it is not outside the realms of possibility. But if you believe that Artel might still be alive, I would be much more inclined to believe that the tale of his execution was a lie for political reasons, rather than he has access to some mysterious ceremony that brings him back from the dead. But what do I know? I'm merely the ritual master.
What body was responsible for executing him? The Ordo or the Crown?
Both in concert. I remember there being feverish arguments about it in the military camp near Harras. I had just arrived. I was fortunate enough to miss the Starfall itself.
So assuming he lived,
would have been interesting.
They both would be aware.
Perhaps. Secrets are lost in time. People die. Others forget.
Was the execution?
Or maybe he is dead, and this is some imposter
invoking his memory.
I'm sorry, I have a quick tangential question. You mentioned the general's on his way to Karvosti. We have been so tied up in all the politics that we may have missed some wider politics. What's going on down there?
Peace talks.
There was that.
That small matter, yeah.
There was that small war we found ourselves in the middle of.
Corinthia's little tantrum has proved to be a bit of an embarrassment. Now there are bigger problems. And she needs to get on Tharaban's good side. Especially now that his son came here and got burned to death.
Yes, it was not...
Technically, I do not know that for certain. Perhaps he was merely crushed.
We do know that, but I can't
from
remember.
what we saw.
He wasn't particularly burned. He died from the collapse of the roof.
So we have a name, we have a location.
Oh, just so you know, they may be dead already, but Artel's two associates who were coaxed into this scheme have been released to the Corinthian forces because I couldn't convince us to do anything more interesting than them. But if you have any strings to pull, they might be interesting to talk to. They seem very young.
I don't care.
Okay.
They were clear. I imagine they were dupes. Yes. Yes.
It would seem so.
No one truly involved in the internal structure of the Order Magica would dare to involve themselves in anything involving ceremonial magic. It is simply too big of a risk to take. After all, what is it? Only knowledge, only power.
But if you have, as a man with a deep intellectual interest in such matters, managed to refrain from breaking the law in that way for all this time, then it's reasonable to assume that anybody else in the Order Magica would have the same outlook.
Perhaps not, but I certainly don't see many of the more potent members of the institution doing it. They're too interested in escalating up the ladder.
Understood. That's good to know.
And now, with Seldonio gone, one of the cats lets out a kind of... Not you, the other one. He has led the Order for so long.
You suspect a change of direction?
Depends who comes out on top. I'm sure whoever does the Order will spare no time kowtowing to the Kohinoors again. Well, was that quite enough? Unless you wish to learn more about the inner workings of ceremonies, I don't care. I'll tell you.
One thing about this ceremony in particular, is there a certain number of people that you would need to perform this ceremony, or does it depend on how powerful these people are?
It does to a certain degree. To a certain degree. I would not wish at least 4, but preferably more. The more the merrier, as long as none of them are completely incompetent.
Okay.
And at least one of them needs to be puissant. Very.
Have you
Let's let Chris go.
All right.
Have you spoken to the elves about their rituals? Or their ceremonies?
I've studied a little. They do not carry out ceremonies, as far as I know. It seems antithetical to their entire rationale and philosophy to spill out so much corruption into the world.
You know, doesn't matter.
My reading of the scene of the ceremony is that it was going ahead. It was apparently in the hands of somebody skilled enough to constrain the effect, at least on the receiving end at the cathedral. And at some point during the course of events, one of the participants, for some reason, It's the circle.
You've made a fundamental error.
Which is?
It is possible that there was no intention to restrain the impact, but the restraint of the impact is the direct result of someone failing the ritual.
Oh,
Ceremony. Ritual. It's the same thing. Why do...
I understand.
that's an interesting take.
So the limited impact was not necessarily deliberate. It could have been a side effect of
a certain amount
in the ritual circle.
of energies are marshaled. They must be released somehow. It is possible that it was intended that more of them be fueled to the city, but instead they were released at the ceremonial site. Some of them will always be released at the ceremonial site, but
somebody who is interested in limiting the impact in the city may choose to disrupt the ritual in order to vent that at the site instead.
Again, this is an assumption. It may have been down to incompetence rather than intent. There are so many ways in which a ceremony can collapse.
Okay.
I'm very, very interested now to speak to this Artel.
In the event of a collapse, regardless of the intention behind it, our understanding is that everybody there died, with the exception of 2 people who we suspect were there and could not find. Are there reasonable ways that somebody who was lucky or who knew what they were doing could walk away from that circle?
Of course.
Despite the damage caused to the area.
Anything's
They could
possible.
protect themselves. Okay. That was it. Thank you. I just wanted to check that our understanding of the scene tallied with an expert's view on what is possible.
Well then, this has been slightly entertaining, but if you don't mind, I'll return to my studies. Don't forget those clunky weapons on your way out, and don't let the cats out.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
He already seems to have moved on from the conversation and is browsing through a tome next to him and absent-mindedly tussling the head of one of the cats. You missed, John, the information that one of the cats is called Seldonio.
Amazing. I wanted to ask about the cats. Are they all black cats, or is it just that the one that escaped is a black cat?
It's a big scattering mix of cats.
Excellent.
Chris?
Just before we ride triumphantly out of town, I would like to buy a loaf of bread from the nice lady and ask her when this wizard arrived.
That's a good question. You do. Okay. Yeah, you do. I take it we are leaving and taking our weapons and making sure the cats don't. They definitely try. A couple of them definitely try, but you manage to head them off at the pass. That's a good question. As you buy some bread from her, she says, "Oh, the owl. I think he's been there 2 or 3 months."
Conspiratorial murmuring on the way out of town, then.
Okay. As Chris decides to follow what may be like a trail of breadcrumbs that leads into the solution or the world's biggest wild goose chase. I think we'll. It wasn't a big dramatic ending, but we are running a bit late, so I think we'll wrap up the stream there with the weird old wizard and his lovely cats and nice biscuits. If you've got any comments or questions, pop them in the chat and we will address them. If you want to follow anything else about the channel, there's all the links you might expect below. Symbaroum is supposed to be weekly. So many things are supposed to be weekly. But we should be back next week and hopefully every week following that forever. I'm sure it'll work out. Mondays has been taking a bit of a break recently, but Call of Cthulhu is aiming to be back this Monday. Is that right, John? Yeah, is that right? We were going to do our first one shot in a while last weekend, but that also fell through because life. I'll probably try and book that in again this month, which probably means that Yellow King won't be. I just keep, join the Discord. You'll find out all the scheduling nonsense there. So there we go. John, do you want to whack some comments and questions in chat, please?
I think I can.
You can.
Oh my god. Well, this was the only one that got saved.
Don't kick food. Make your incontinence roll. Yes, which we had at the beginning. There's a couple of others that I noticed.
I would also like to flag up.
It's time for the public bath episode.
I would like to flag up this one.
From Steve, New Telling Tales Kickstarter, detailed RPG rules that include precise handshaking mechanics.
I think it is that all rolls have to be done by 2 people simultaneously.
Yeah.
I think you're just 100 monkeying Matt into recreating GURPS from ground up.
Yeah. No, but that's the thing. I want all these precise simulationist things, but I don't want any of them to be bound by mechanics. I just want them to be bound by my own immutable, completely flawless sense of correct and incorrect.
The tested roll for grip strength.
No, I will tell you what your grip strength is. I know your character in this world better than you ever could.
D100 on the clamminess table.
Yeah. We also have one from Steve. Being stared at by that many cats simultaneously must cause some sort of psychic damage. Even if you know and love a cat, then them just relentlessly staring at you all causes psychic damage. I know this all too well.
I feel like that's a mechanic we should have put in the soft.
Yeah.
By cats.
Yeah. Also, I feel we haven't had many streams recently, so I'm probably safe in saying JC Junker, thank you for following us. I think you probably haven't had a shout out yet. There we go. I think that's everything, unless there's anything else one of my players wants to bring up from the session or just in general. Anyway, no. Cool. Okay, thank you so much to my lovely players. Thank you to everyone watching. We will hopefully return next week. Until then, take care, stay safe, and we will see you later. Goodbye. Farewell.